our new commissioner, Andy Schutz. Welcome. And then we'll go into the election. Any nomination, I should say, nominations for president.
I'd like the motion to nominate Chris Hansen as president.
Are there any other nominations?
Move to close the nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Mr. Hansen.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off there. So you'll make a motion. I'm gonna close.
You'll close nominations.
Yeah, so, and I'm just gonna ask one more time, any other nominations, third time? Okay, then we'll declare that closed, and then I need a motion and a second to accept that nomination.
Move to accept the nomination and declare a unanimous ballot on that.
I second it.
Okay. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then you have a ballot in front of you if you just wanna vote for the president. And then we will have the mayor and city clerk tally those. Sorry.
That's right.
Four vote for Hansen and an abstention.
Okay. And then I will turn the meeting over to you, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. So we need to have nominations for vice president.
Make the motion for William Pinker as vice chair, vice president.
Second. If there's no other nominations, I'll second it. Sorry about that.
Any other nominations? You gotta do that 3 times.
Yep, 3 times.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll close the nomination. Can we get a motion to accept Bill as vice as a unanimous vote?
Motion, I'll make the motion. Yep.
Second it.
Sorry, I'm a little clunky.
No.
No worries, are you kidding? No worries ever, gosh.
Being here is 99% of it.
Exactly, yep. If we were perfect, we would not be here, trust me, We'd be on an island somewhere.
And then go ahead and, all those in favor, I guess, of that nomination, signify by saying aye.
Sure. Everybody in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign? Okay.
And they can probably do the paper ballot too.
Okay, paper ballots, please.
Okay.
5 votes for Mr. Pinker.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Thanks, guys. Nominations for
Second page, secretary.
secretary, please.
I nominate Steve Meek as secretary.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? We'll close the nominations. And,
Motion
to,
unanimous ballot.
Yep.
Steve Meek.
Did I get a second? Boom.
And we need to do paper ballot on this too.
Yeah, just, yeah. All those in favor, I guess, aye. That nomination.
Four votes for Mr. Meek and one abstention.
Okay, excellent. Now we got the awkward part over. Okay, so continuing on with the meeting, we don't have a ton of stuff here today, but we have any public comment?
Yes, I'd like to make a public comment. Lois T. Strake, 815 East 19th Street, Mayor. Congratulations to our new member and congratulations to everyone and being nominated. And I'm excited to see what the next year is going to bring us as something a little bit different, which is great. So good luck, everyone. There's no luck involved. It's all skill. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lois. Andy, welcome. It's gonna be fun. You'll learn a lot. I have in the last couple of years myself, so very eye-opening. Moving on from public comment, staff updates.
I do have a couple for the fire department. You got one too. Okay. A couple that I had, you're gonna see on your docket this month. Normally we'd have 8 policies and procedures that have come forward. We got into some and we're starting to get into the more in-depth ones that have a lot more moving pieces in them. Unfortunately, we were unable to get all of that put together for this meeting. We'll be bringing that forward in June. The work group for fire department fitness, that work group will be meeting on May 20th. That's got Commissioner Gershman, Commissioner Meek, and then we have Deputy Chief Jonas, myself, and we've also got HR involved in that first meeting. And then we'll kind of find out where that work group should go from there. I'll be reaching out with some more information as we go. As far as the TEMS, that's the Tactical Emergency Medical Service. We are still looking into that. I think next month we're going to try to meet between the police department and fire department, figure out a few things, and then we'll be bringing that forward in the near future. Recruitment, we've really made some great strides in that track. We actually offered 2 positions this last month, and we've got a 3rd position ready to go for January 1, 2026. So I really appreciate everything with the commission as far as the career track 2 and being able to get that moving forward so we can actually get some personality in those positions. Otherwise, we really had no one that was available that was going to be able to meet the criteria what the fire department needed. And then lastly, the training center master plan is moving along splendidly. We've gotten it through the Board of Public Works. We've moved through Common Council. We've got full approval, and SEH is going to be our company. That one came in at $26,900. The next closest one in that bid process was about $68,000. It was $68,000. The next one was $125,000. There was one at $250 and one at about $156. Those 2 really couldn't meet what we were looking for. The other 3 could meet what we were looking for. And when we placed all 3 of those side by side, we recognized that SEH still was the best one out of that fit. They were able to do the same actions. The only thing that we had in the other 2 was they just had more architects, more engineers involved in that, which really increased the cost, and they brought in a couple outside firms. SEH was able to do everything within the community or within their own company, so we felt that was the best one. But that'll be moving forward. As soon as we get all the documents signed, we'll be moving forward with work groups within the fire department and starting to move that project forward. So really appreciate all your help with that, and I'll keep you updated on everything.
I just want to add to what the chief just said. When we had the 5 firms, and what was interesting is that SEH had 10 in-house staff and they were only using 2 consultants. You looked at the next bid, which was at $68,000. They had 10 in-house staff and they were using 9 consultants, including a gentleman that is associated with a firm that has done a lot of training centers, but being a supranational, international style consultant, that kind of shoots the price up as well. And then the others, we have one firm, they were only dealing with 8 in-house people and 17 consultants. So you see where the price difference is starting to come in some of these. We did a lot of work on that, but I think in the end, we're very pleased with the result. I think this firm is going to do a good job for us.
Thank you. Those were all the updates for the.
At the police department, I'm happy to announce that we have officially selected a company to do the design for the new renovation project, the new police department. BKV was selected and approved Tuesday night at council. Our selection committee, which included Commissioner Meek and Penker, among some other people, Mayor Lois was in there. We unanimously picked BKV at that time, and they were absolutely just a phenomenal company. We were really impressed with them. We got a lot of history in designing police departments, specifically over 200 police departments. They're out of Minneapolis, but also have offices in Chicago and Dallas, and I think Washington. Very impressive. We're excited to get started on it. Josh Moretz is writing up the final contracts, and we should be moving forward with that within the next week or so.
But I think adding to what Chief just said, we had 13 people, so 13 firms submitted bids on this. And those bids ran from $372,000 up to $750,000. And he looked at what was being offered up there at the top end. He just couldn't rationalize what they were offering versus their price. He took a look at BKV, just a superior presentation. And I think as Chief noted afterwards, they are a company that are comfortable. And that has really a lot to do with the success of the project. But that was a lot of work on this one, a lot of work.
And there's more to come.
You just started.
Only started.
Yeah,
You can start.
starting, yeah.
Okay, moving on, we need to do the approval of the minutes from the April 10th regular meeting.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Do we need a vote for that?
Those in favor?
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Fire service and law enforcement news updates.
We have got a wide range of things this time. One I think is really good because I know we have innovative people in our departments. A situation occurred in Scottville, Michigan. It was a residential fire and there were people trapped on a second-story balcony. Law enforcement arrived before the fire department and they pulled the pickup truck right up next to the building, went from the ground to the hood to the roof, and were able to evacuate the people successfully. There was another situation also in Michigan. They were first on the scene before the fire department got there, and they formed a human pyramid to get people out of the windows. You may recall that in Delray Beach, Florida, earlier in the year, a firefighter driving an aerial truck, I noted this on the form with lots of dollar signs, went around crossing gates and was struck by a Brightline commuter train traveling at 80 miles an hour. The truck was obviously destroyed. Firefighter was fired, as well as being cited. And just for reference, if the train's going 80 miles per hour, it's 117 feet per second. You don't need that. It's difficult to get ahead of. Boulder, Colorado, they are now the only department in the United States that has 2 electric fire trucks. They claim they work in cold weather. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens during the colder weather than this winter. The chief and I were talking the other day about some of the problems that arise when you have development that isn't well planned. Saugus, Massachusetts, they had a house fire. I saw the videos. This is a large house. They needed an aerial truck to effectively fight the fire. street was too narrow and the grade was too steep to get the aerial truck up. So then they got pumpers on scene and they had to fight the fire with ground ladders. Line of duty deaths in the fire service, again, notice cardiac, sudden medical event, which is normally a cardiac. I note firefighter age 27, volunteer firefighter. I think both law enforcement and fire service are aware of this. Sometimes volunteers respond in personal vehicles and sometimes they overdrive themselves. I had mentioned this earlier in the year. Milwaukee PD had traded in all of their Sig Sauer P320 handguns because they were having spontaneous ignitions with those, many while they were in their officers' holsters. Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission has banned all of those pistols from their training facilities. And since 2017, departments in at least 5 states have also pulled those because of the misfires. Not that we need to be concerned about station design and style, but the officer station design boards are now open, and hopefully we will have a design that we can enter in the future. In the last incident that I'll emphasize here, on April 27, Kansas City, Missouri paramedics responded to a call of a woman down on the sidewalk. Unknown to them, she had already had numerous interactions with law enforcement. She was out on a $10,000 bond for biting a police officer. In the ambulance, she produced a knife and stabbed the paramedic in the heart. Paramedics are being subjected to more and more attacks these days. You also have an article about lithium-ion battery heat release. We've talked about that before. And then fire department training facilities. Members deserve the best, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Bill. Moving on to approval of fire department bills.
Good morning. There were 2 sets of bills this month. The first set was signed by Commissioner Hanson on April 30th, and the second set was signed by Commissioner Hirschman on May 14th. We had one item for discussion, the mobile health services. You'll find that on page 8E. That is actually our NFPA 1582 physicals. We actually brought a company in this year and did all the physicals right here on site. We were able to get it accomplished in 3 days on duty. That helped us to kind of limit how much overtime we had. We had to send them up to the Marshall Clinic, and then it's taken us multiple months, multiple weeks to try to get all of that accomplished. And in doing that, sometimes we don't actually receive the bills in the right year. So it's been kind of a billing process with a billing error back and forth. So it's kind of a problem between the Marshall Clinic with that billing system. Hopefully they can resolve that in the future, but this was the best fit for us for this year, and it seems to be working. We'll go with them again next year. And I guess those were the major items that I saw for clarification. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Over on page 8E, we're replacing 3 refrigerators. Are those the original ones? Or were these replaced ones?
Those, I believe, are in the ambulances. The AD, correct.
Yeah, GE refrigerators. That's from Midwest.
Oh, we replaced 1 refrigerator this year, so there should have been 3 of those that came through 3 budgets.
Okay.
Yep, that one was in the 3 budgets, but it was one, and then we're basically replacing those every 5 years. Mittens runs a full warranty on that, for a 5-year warranty on those. The problem we were having on those, they were breaking down, ice makers were shot within a couple of years, so we went to this plan, and then having a more responsible plan moving forward to make sure that we're replacing those items within the department, so we don't have big hits.
Any other questions? Motion to approve fire department.
Second.
Thank you.
We got we'll do a roll call for this one.
Yes.
Pinker? Gershman?
Yes.
Schutz? Meek?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes. approval of police department bills.
Thank you. You've got two sets of two packets of bills in your, two sets of bills in your packet. You get it out here sooner or later. The first was signed by Commissioner Pinker April 30th, and the other yesterday by Commissioner Neves. There wasn't anything of note that I saw, but I'd be willing to answer any questions before you accept them.
I just got two questions for you. First one is, when you tow a vehicle, I know you towed a vehicle, do we get reimbursed?
If we tow a vehicle for someone else, like from a crash or a crime, then we can get reimbursed. If it's our vehicle, obviously it would be our bill, so.
Yeah, I was just curious, because you pulled up. And then the second thing is, for service clubs in the past, are we only reimbursed the officers for membership fee? I'm just trying to think if that's.
We have a couple of members that if they're in a group that is a benefit to the department, like the Kiwanis group, I think is probably what you noticed. That's one that we can pay a department member. We have a department member, so anyone in the department can attend those meetings and have representation at Kiwanis. But we have our community officer that's kind of the key person for that. What we found is that Kiwanis is really in line with our values as far as reaching out to the kids and reaching out to the community, and it gives us a really good in with that. So we did join a membership as a department.
No, I think it's a great club. I was just curious. In the past, I had.
It isn't very often that we do that. There's a couple out there, but this was one that we decided to go in just because it was so in line with what we wanted to do.
Very good. That's it.
Any other discussion? Can I get a motion to approve? Need a second?
Second.
Bill? And we'll do a roll call for approval.
Pinker,
Yes.
Hirschman,
Yes.
Schutz,
Yes.
Mead,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes. Fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence.
All right. If you were to look at 10H, we've had a fairly busy month. This month, we're 294 calls. Last year, we were at 275 at this time. If you look at the overall trend for this year, we're definitely trending up a little bit. And we see this over time, so our trends continue to kind of go up. Sometimes we dip like last year was, and then we continue to kind of go and move towards that direction. So call volume is up just a touch. There were a couple items I wanted to call out in here as well. If you were to go to page 10E on the 25th, I had attended a meeting with James Small, and that's the Wisconsin Office of Rural Health. We forgot to catch that abbreviation. James Small has been it's a free service, I guess is where I'm going with that. It's a free service it's through the federal government, and so far everything has continued to have funding for that program. They can come out and help us to make decisions on how to better fund the fire service. So we're kind of working with them to see what we can do to maybe make some changes and how we can help with the levy limits as far as bringing that cost down. So there's some options that we're looking at. I do have a meeting scheduled later this month with city staff just to kind of go over high level and see if it's something that could be a good fit. But that's one of the meetings I've been working on a lot to try to see what we could do in that area. So I did have a couple meetings with them, and then again, kind of a busy month, but overall, those were the items I had to really bring forward that I saw that stuck out. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
10C, on the 16th, you were meeting with Vector Solutions for the Fourth Administration. What do they do?
10C, which one is it again? Demo with Vector Solutions?
Yeah.
Vector Solutions, we're looking at an inventory software, possibly seeing what we could do to manage our fleet and then also bring all of our equipment underneath that. This one software happens to be a package where right now we use about 3 different programs to take care of one thing. We think we can do it in one program. When a person, every year we have our firefighters go through inventory their gear and look through their equipment to make sure that it's sustainable and if there's any repairs that need to be made. All of that can be hooked to that. That goes back to the inventory as well for each piece of inventory equipment. And then we can run statistics on that or run an overall scan of that to see what the long-term effect of that turnout will be over a 10-year period. If we've got a good cycle for our replacement or if we need to do something different.
The police department also uses Vector Solutions. We use it for, it's a good way to channel in projects. if we have a department training and we have to check off that everybody does a training, we can assign it through Vector. It's just a good way to organize a lot of different tasks, so it's a pretty good company.
Then over 10B, noticed that Harry Dolan was doing some autism training. How often do we have interactions with autistic folks?
That one, it's variable. I would say probably at least 5 times a year, minimally. Possibly throughout, sometimes we'll see an uptick. We also are part of the other program for the Wood County. I know you're part of that as well. That basically allows us to, what's the name of that program? We have the scanners. Project Lifesaver, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time figuring out that one. The Project Lifesaver program, that's actually coordinated by Wood County Sheriff's Department, and the police department's a part of it, plus a lot of our first responder agencies around here. So that's also a big piece of this. So if someone is high functioning or they've got some disability where they would need that, that actually allows them to have a tag so that we can find them if they ever get lost or uncoordinated. So this is just a part where Harry has come in and basically gave us some discussions and has taught us a little bit more about how to deal with them in emergency situations. It's a completely different world than what we normally do. So.
Okay. And then over on 10E, would you let us know when we have firefighters in career expos?
Yes.
For job fairs?
Absolutely. Like
Just
the future reports?
Yeah, and let us know. Perhaps one of us would want to go along.
Okay.
Any other discussion, questions?
Point of clarification on that, would you like that through email, sending out a group email? Has that been working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most efficient way, for sure. Yeah. Great. I think I do that.
Thank you, Chief. Police department activities.
Thank you. We've had a pretty busy month. I guess a lot of training. Our training cycle ends June 30th, so people are stacking up on making sure they get their hours in. So community engagements. I didn't see anything particularly of note in this, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions before you place them on file.
Just one item, and I had talked to you a little bit about, one of the officers participated in a federal immigration law webinar. And certainly there's been some changes since the beginning of the year. They did want to have you just kind of clarify if anything's changed. But there are interaction with federal agencies or in workflows at all, or is it just all the same?
Yeah, thank you. There hasn't been any change in our department at all as it relates to immigration laws. As you all know, immigration law is a federal law. We don't enforce federal law unless we're being directed by the federal government. To date, we have not been directed to do anything different. Most commonly, if we're involved at all in any type of deportation, it's as a result after an arrest, and it's done basically after they're incarcerated in jail. So there hasn't been any changes at all as far as we're concerned, as far as our department has been involved.
Have you had any interactions with anything that you've seen that looks like human trafficking?
Suspicions, but there's not been anything to date that we've made any arrests on human trafficking, at least recently. So
You haven't pulled a van over 10 or 12 people and
no, we haven't done that. But I will say that we have had officers attend training. We've had those conversations on a quite frequent basis, and we are looking for it. So
I'm glad to hear that because, I think sometimes, is it obvious or is it not obvious? But
unfortunately, it's not always obvious.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
True too. Thank you.
And then, Chief, over on page 11B, just below the middle, Detective Schemmel, the Drug Endangered Children Conference at Stevens Point. Do you have any idea how often we come in contact with children that would be in that category?
Unfortunately, that's fairly often. We get notice, a lot of times those come in through social services or human services. But even, you know, if you think of if we make a drug arrest on a warrant or in a home, those kids are exposed to those parents using illegal substances. And unfortunately, this is something that we run into quite a bit.
Can I ask a follow-up to this question? Is, in the past, PD hasn't been involved with social services on some visits. And I don't know what the numbers are, you can actually track that. Is that pretty much still the case?
We're actually involved with them quite frequently with visits. If we get a drug and danger report or a potential abuse situation, then we go with Human Services often to do a home check to make sure that happens. And those are all done under a certain time restraint. Once we get the report, we have to respond within a certain time. And those happen quite frequently. I don't know the statistics as far as how often, but they're a semi-regular occurrence.
So my follow-up question, is that plain clothes or do you bring a uniform?
It's usually our detectives that go there, so they would wear their normal detective garb, business casual, I would say.
Yeah, that would make more sense to me, you know, just being sensitive to the social impact to children.
Right, and you know, there's times where we're just contacting the parents as well, and the kids might be at school during that time, depending on the situation, obviously. But normally, the people who investigate that would be our investigators.
Okay, so detectives would be in charge of following up on that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's just important when you're dealing with a family under that scenario that, you know, you try to exhibit as much grace as you can, realize
Exactly.
the families are there. Thank you.
One more question for you. This is on the monthly stats. On a quarterly basis, we have some bar graphs, so we have some comparison of what's actually going on out there. Taking a look, and I'm looking at page 11H. So we have total crime, 73 offenses. For instance, we have a bar graph, like crimes against persons, crimes against property. If some of these are significant, like thefts from motor vehicles, thefts from garages and so forth, we have those put on. So over a quarter, we have some idea of what the patterns are.
Possibly, we could. I guess specifically, what crimes would you be looking for? Because in order for us to run the data to put into bar graphs, we would need to know what exactly you're looking for.
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, but we can figure something out. That Cindy's pretty good with picto chart and can do graphs pretty easily.
Yeah, I think just as the follow-up, I think the majority of people are visual learners. I think that makes it a lot easier to see trends. And then I think once you get started with that, we could ask for some additional data to be able to look at visually too in terms of, I'm not sure what to ask yet, but.
Yeah, if we can narrow down what we're looking for, we can put it together.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up, because I kind of had the same thing in mind. It's a little difficult to read and comprehend from one month to the next.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, I understand that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay, next item on the agenda is a preliminary discussion on public information officers. Presented by Commissioner Pinker.
What I'm gonna do is,
I mean, is there something like some information for us to read as your?
no handouts.
Okay,
We got those last month.
okay.
Yeah. I'm going to read directly from my notes, this will make it easier. The topic of public information officers, the PIO, has been noted at several meetings as an item for future discussion. At the last meeting, an article about public information officers was included as part of the monthly update. That was the article for Chief Szymanski. As we look to shift emergency management operations to the fire department, and as we look to develop a more robust and effective media presence across the various platforms, is it time to investigate and discuss the position? The article by Chief Samansky provides a starting point for discussion. Among items we could or should discuss are, do we need a PIO? Do we need one? Do we need two? Who would they be? What would their responsibilities be? Who would supervise the position? Would the PIO be a part of the emergency management function and not a part of the departments, even though the position could possibly be a spokesman for both? As we consider the position, we must remember that the Public Information Officer is a permanent part of the Incident Command System, ICS, and ICS is part of the National Incident Management System. And by definition, the PIO is in part, quote, a member of the ICS command staff responsible for interfacing with the public, media, or with other agencies. We need to increase our media presence. We no longer just enforce laws and fight fires, we do other things as well. We need to upgrade how we operate within the media spectrum in both emergency and non-emergency situations. And if we can develop a strong and innovative program, we can become a model for other agencies. At this point, what do we do? And it's my suggestion that both departments, either individually or together, come up with some sort of conceptual outline for the position. And I think it might also be to our advantage if members of the commission, at least based upon the material from Chief Samansky, also come up with some sort of conceptual view of the PIO. And that way, at a future meeting, I know that we've got budgets preparation in June and July, we've got a lot of pressure. Perhaps we can look at this for start discussions at the August meeting. Good enough? Any comments from my colleagues?
So are you talking about using a staff member from each department to take that on as an additional role, or are we talking about hiring somebody?
This would fit into the conceptual outline. Whether we need a single person, whether we have sufficient manpower so we can distribute this across present personnel. Since we're moving into a greater emergency management capacity, perhaps this is something that can be fit into an emergency management budget. There's a lot of options, and it's not something that you can hit the August meeting and say, yep, this looks good, let's approve it and go on. This is going to take some thought.
You know, my comment is on a granular level. Majority of departments our size usually have the assistant chief or chief act as the primary spokesperson. Yeah. I think the segue to that is, you know, you want to have a social media presence too, which are, I think, really two different things. I don't think it's a bad idea to have somebody that has some professional training within the department, but I'm not so sure. I don't know, Bill, you're thinking about an individual position in each department, or just one that's shared between the two. And like, you know, from an affordability standpoint with benefits and such, you know, my personal feeling is I don't think it's possible, but I think we should examine who's doing what, and are they having the resources to be able to act in that role. The second thing is we do have a city communications department that maybe there's some way that we could actually leverage their expertise and be able to push out more information through their channels. But I don't think it hurts to talk about it for sure and examine it. I think your suggestion, have the two chiefs to get together and start putting some framework together along with any suggestions that you have or anybody else on the commission. I think that all makes a good idea because it's been a neglected area.
Right. You know, when you look at public information, today there's a lot of thought, oh, we can have a social media presence. And what is forgotten, and okay, I'm old school, I go print, radio, TV, we do have a spectrum. And it would be nice to get ourselves out there across the entire spectrum. The one guy that I take a look at, and I mentioned this to both chiefs, is you look in the area, who gets, in terms of a government leader, who gets the most presence? Mayor Weeza, to Stephen's point, he's on TV all the time. I mean, if they get a new paving machine that simultaneously lifts old blacktop out, puts new blacktop in and rolls it out, he's there, he's got his vest on and he's selling that. That's that TV presence. Right now, I guess we can debate what our local television is. But to get out there, it lets people know what we're doing. Merrill Fire Department has had some good media contacts.
This concept was talked a lot when I was at the FBI Academy, and some departments out east have hired former news anchors or news media people. It's been a real benefit for them. It's more than just, doing social media posts or having the be in front of the camera. In fact, most of the time, the chiefs and assistant chiefs are still in front of the camera. But the framework of what they're saying was developed by the PIO. It helps to make a lot more professional speaking or professional interviews. The biggest advantage, though, is kind of getting ahead of your department image. So you can use all of the social media and regular media to really push your agendas for your department. So it can put your department in the more positive light. If there's something negative that's happened in your community, you can be the first one to report on it and get ahead of all of the spin. So there's been a lot of advantage to it. And so I think Everett and I can talk about maybe getting some framework and at least seeing what mountain it is that we have to climb. And whether that's financial or structurally, the chain of command and how that would work, I think we could start piecing that together. I think there's an advantage to having the position. Logistically, I wonder if we're able to do it, but that's one to look.
It's a case, we don't know if we're able to do it unless we set out the concept.
Well, you have to look at it just to be able to know what you're looking at, you know what I mean? So, anything up against it, I think we just need to be sensitive to what the cost impact could be, and the idea of working between the departments makes absolute sense. Just, and I know we have talked about it a little bit in terms of, just being able to push out more content, either through traditional media or social media.
I think to do it right, it would be too much to ask Tom and David to do, because it's just, they have so much work already. And for us to really push out our department image would be really asking them a lot, I think.
So I disagree with you a little bit there, because they always look for content. I mean, they're asking for content, right? So I think you're right. I think from step one, it would probably be, I think it'd be able to create everything you want. You're probably right, they're not gonna be able to. But it doesn't mean you can't put you between two ferns and do an interview,
One thing I think we could do, if we're looking to do this in August, possibly inviting Tom here so that we can talk about where his limitations might be or where he could do things. It'd probably be good to hear directly from him.
Yeah.
I know in looking at the PIO positions in the past, sometimes looking at the relationship building that you get with the media. Being able to have that relationship where they feel comfortable calling you and setting up stories, doing things like that. There is some part in that relationship building that should be there. A lot of times that falls by the wayside just because of the other tasks that we're tasked with each and every day. It becomes a part of ours. It's like a little sliver in there, and really it should be a broader, wide band of things that we're trying to do. Where that really helps out is when you have major incidents. You look at like the plane crash in Washington, D.C., that was a well orchestrated, they're able to get information out in a timely manner. They were able to coordinate that. If we would have something here, we've got a major train rail that runs through our community. And if something happens with that, I can guarantee that every first responder from around the entire area is going to be tasked with just trying to take care and mitigate that situation. And probably the media is going to be left aside. And if you don't take care of the media during those major incidents, that's where the problem really comes in. Because they're going to go find the information any way they can, and it might not be the story that really is the truth. And possibly we could get some information that shouldn't be out there when we can coordinate that and make sure that they have the proper information that's going to help the community.
Even more so, they may enter into the danger zone, so to speak, and Because they're gonna, if we don't have a place to meet with them, they're gonna go find the story. So that could put it right in the middle of our incident, whatever it be.
So I think you've got the framework, that's been presented by Bill, plus whatever you guys come up with. So I think, August, September, whatever it takes to have a thorough conversation about in terms of having all your data points together and such, and then have Tom come, I think is a great idea. So
There's something to also to make sure, a lot of times we gotta build a job description. That's gotta be done through HR, so we have a job description out there for the profile. Plus, we need to build the policies within, and that's before you ever get to the point of even looking for recruitment. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the smaller end of it, which we can do. We can work through those things. But that's something we could definitely get, and then when the funding becomes available later on, we at least have all that information ready to go. And when that time comes, we can pull it off the shelf and possibly look at it.
like the thing I would like to say, I'm sorry about that, Steve, just one last question, is, I would like to see that you have a framework during a crisis thing in terms of who's communicating what, where, what that process is. And maybe that's a shared responsibility. It would be a shared responsibility for the unit departments, and just to work on that would be a start.
And even on those incidents, the major incidents, we're gonna be both departments are gonna be together. We're gonna be, the police department and the fire department will be working directly together. They'll have a bigger scope of taking care of the isolation of that incident. We'll have the scope of taking care of what's right on the incident itself. So I think there's definitely a framework there, and we can pull that right from the PIO framework that has been established by the fire administration. So we can pull that from there and have that ready to go.
I just one last comment. I can't see any scenario where we didn't have a major event that either of you two chiefs would not be there or be making public comments. So
Absolutely.
You're just going to be there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Who was this town that you guys are referencing?
Tom Logs?
Tom Lowe's, communication director for the city of Marshall.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So my concern is, do we have enough incidents or other PR-related, newsworthy information that needs to get out to justify somebody or an entity to fill a full-time position, about 2,080 hours a year?
Yeah, I think that really where the beauty of this position lies is not in when you have the big news events, it's actually building the following. So when the news events happens, you have all these people that you can connect with immediately. So they're gonna be doing things like public relation things. They might be out finding content where an officer helped a child. Maybe an officer helps somebody across the road, little things like that. A fire department might be at the school doing some training or doing some educational things for kids and put that on media. And you build that following so you have, thousands and thousands of people following your social media and all of the platforms. Then if we have an incident, we can get information out on those platforms and immediately reach thousands and thousands of people. That's kind of where that beauty comes in and where you build the following and then you can reach a lot of people quickly. That's the general thought.
Wouldn't the majority of viewers be looking at public access TV or Facebook? And we've been utilizing, the PD's been utilized.
It's changing, I think. The media is changing. The source of media is changing pretty quickly. So this helps reach more people.
When we look at where media is going, we had print, and if it was good print at one time, it was the next day. Locally, we don't have that sort of media anymore. We're basically out to a week. So we're shifting then to other sources. Don't forget print. But then when you look at the other sources, you're getting, as Chief noted, some rapid changes, and perhaps if you look at this, maybe we have a demographic in town that does X, and they don't do Facebook or Twitter or anything like that anymore. Somebody in this position can begin to assess that, and we can direct ourselves to the media that gives us the greater presence. There's something I think that people forget, and this goes back to my comment, we don't enforce laws, we don't fight fires, we do other things. Not that it's necessary that we have a brand, but what are we promoting? Who is the fire department? Who is the police department? That gets into smaller details. For instance, school liaison officers. Or puppy. Well, Reggie isn't a puppy anymore. Something like that. How often does that dog help students? How many have been helped? There's a lot that goes on beneath the surface. I perhaps take a different view of this because I've been involved with emergency services in a much broader perspective. I know where Steve's coming from. But today, media is so important. It can sell ourselves, it can destroy us, and we've got to be on the selling end. There's also this abstract monster out there. If you go back historically, Marshfield has had a frequent occurrence of serious incidents, primarily fire incidents. We almost had a big one on Mother's Day. For those of us who were here last time, I was talking about the silo incident in Iowa. That could have been, this thing could have been worse. We could have had 2 dust explosions out there, and who knows where that would have gone. We have to be prepared for a major incident. Now, admittedly, our chief officers are going to be on site, but if this is large scale, is their responsibility press or is it responsibility for public safety? This is where the public information officer comes in. Now, to develop this position, there's a lot to look at. And it's just not as simple as saying, okay, we're going to have the PIO, see what the PIO is going to do. How does it fit in the staffing? Where does it fit in the staffing? How much is this going to cost us? Is it possible? I put that with capital letters. Is this possible that we could do it within the current staff? We don't know until we have a conceptual framework.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I think we have to be sensitive to what the public would think, right? So, you know, we just went to referendum to add additional staff just to get back up to the level that we did before. I think for a lot of people in the community, if you look at a public information officer who was full-time, not a contracted position, just for social media and such, I don't think it would be an easy. So, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it would be a heavy lift.
See, that's why we need this concept development. Because we're just not social media. We're going beyond that.
But social media is media. I think when you look at traditional media, things like even Channel 7 News or 9 and Everett's been on the news quite a bit. And it's timely, but the truth is, like Steve reiterated, Facebook and ads, I mean, that is the new media. I mean, in terms of, you know, but I've noticed that clients that I've had of businesses of a certain size, you know, they're not gonna have a full-time media person. They can contract the service out, and that's for image and
Sure.
reviews. So, I mean, there's things to look at. I think let's just get working on it in August and September.
Right, no, in the end, it may come down to the point where we say, this is a great idea, but we can't fit it in.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't get there unless we study it.
You know, I'm all about the process.
I would like to, as the commission, study it. I don't think the city has a PIO officer for the city at all. Am I correct? I just don't know if we have enough work for somebody to do for both departments, and would like to study it, and whatever the findings of that study are, maybe refer it back to the city council. They decipher whether or not the city as a whole needs a PIO. Then if the police and fire department needs more of an individualized PIO, then we look at potentially acquiring our own PIO with the common council's approval. I don't know if it's a good idea for the city to have a PIO as a whole, and that resource can be shared throughout the entire city and not just 2 departments.
I think it'd be more palatable to the taxpayer as well.
So I think let's just start talking about it. Let's get the chiefs involved. Let's do some work. And, you know, it's probably going to take a series of meetings to determine if there's any path forward.
Yeah, and so the plan would be let the chief come up with something, they've got till August to bring us something, and then we can discuss it further.
Because we're in no rush.
No, the clock's in our hand. We have plenty of time. So
Right.
it's,
I guess like Vince went, which clock we pick.
yeah.
I think the positive thing coming out of this also is if it's referred back to the city council, they decipher that, hey, maybe it'd be a good idea that we do have a PIO for all of the departments at a city level. That's advertising the city as a whole as well. And we can get more bang for the buck for the taxpayer that way. Obviously, we may need that person to do things as a priority for the two emergency departments. And that would have to be something that would be discussed in a potential future policy, you know, an emergent type thing going on. So,
Okay. Items for future meetings? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
All right.